Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. We are less than a week away from Christmas, and of course, one of the popular topics is will you have a white Christmas? And as the graphic indicates, yeah, probably not for most of us unless you live in a mountain or maybe you're out west somewhere. We'll take a look at all of this, talk about the wind and the rain in the central U.S., the big warm up that's going to make it not a white Christmas, and a pattern change that may lead to severe weather. All that coming up. Hi, welcome. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We'll start, as I usually do, with the visible satellite loop for the U.S. Grabbed it a little late today, so we have the setting sun across the image there. It's just the difference between the visible satellite and the infrared satellite. The visible satellite is actually a picture taken from space, completely relying on reflected sunlight off the clouds, whereas what's taking over there is the IR or infrared satellite, where the clouds are inferred by temperature change. So the colder it is, the higher it's assumed the cloud is. Anyway, there's a big storm in the central U.S. here for sure. It is a sharp trough, and I'll show you that here in a minute, but it's all focused right in here and quickly moving toward the east coast. Already a ridge of high pressure can be seen right here with the bear claw high clouds coming back around. A very windy condition for the downslope area of all the Rockies this time of year. And that continues to be so. If you take a look at the 500 millibar flow, so a large long wave trough and then several little short wave troughs helping to dig this thing out across the central and eastern U.S. So balmy out ahead of this weather system and cold, at least temporarily, back behind this low. And I say temporarily because it's a warming trend that we are definitely looking at beginning basically today. So here's the surface isobar and wind flow and temperature pattern here. The cold front has already passed through Chicago. It's moving through Indianapolis. It's cutting down to around Houston. We have two high pressure centers. I didn't put one on there. One is up here and the other one down here over the panhandle of Texas. And as you can see here, this is making a big difference with a lot of wind coming in behind this, so much so that there are blizzard warnings in effect for parts of this area. I'll show you that here in a minute. Many of them, though, may have expired by the time you watch this. They only go into the early evening hours of Thursday. And this is the projected model data for 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on this Thursday. Here's the radar loop taken again between 5 and 6 in the Central Standard Time zone. We can see a squall line, not a very intense one, but there are a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings showing up there in western Kentucky, right there toward the end of the loop. You can definitely see there's a swirl in the clouds marking that low, and this is all snow through Iowa. And that, again, with the wind, it doesn't necessarily take a strong, a heavy snowfall to make a blizzard warning. It's a combination of a bunch of things, temperature and wind and snow, for that to take effect. And every Weather Service office, I think, treats that a little bit differently, depending on how many times that kind of thing happens in your state or in your region. Winds are a big factor, too. As you take a look at this, was at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I went ahead and put the high wind warnings in here, kind of shaded in that slightly more orangey color, and the brown color, which covers a lot of ground, is the wind advisory, and these are wind gusts at 4 o'clock. We have some 50-plus mile per hour wind gusts through parts of South Dakota and Minnesota. A lot of 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. I live here in Springfield. It was 25 miles per hour gust at 4 p.m., but I know it's gone above 30 here. I've had to pick up my Christmas polar bear like 3 times this afternoon. I really have to clamp him down to the ground. Let's take a look at snow while we can. Well, I think the highest impact snows are where this winter weather advisory is placed here through much of Minnesota, still through Wisconsin. There's that blizzard warning. Again, its expiration time is going to be early this evening as soon as this weather system moves out. Actually, this one will expire, I believe, at 6. This part of it goes later into the evening. I think it's 9 o'clock. Winter storm warning south of that where the wind is not as bad. Not much of a difference, really, I think, when we take a look at the current conditions. But anyway, a lot of snow flying around up there. And again, it's the last of this type of storm that we're going to see for at least about a 10-day period. Here is the National Weather Service snow forecast. This is a 72-hour forecast. This is through 6 a.m. on Sunday. And so it's 3 days. And you can see a lot of mountain snows in the Cascades and through parts of Idaho, Wyoming, and parts of Montana as well. The scale here indicates if it's a dark red, we're starting to get in the 2 to 3 foot range. If you start seeing a purple color like right there, that could be anywhere from 4 feet or higher. That is certainly the heaviest of the snow. And of course, they're guaranteed for a white Christmas out there because the pattern is changing to help keep that on the mountains. Now, if you go to the East Coast, this is all lake effect snow for the most part. There is some backlash from that low, but you can just tell the way this bands up here that this is lake effect snow because it hugs the coast where the fetch is short, like right here, or it's kind of a finger pattern where the fetch of the wind across the lake is longer and extends out longer. Either way, those are lake effect snows, which have kicked in a little early this year, but that's the end of this for a while. They're just simply not going to see that here as this pattern begins to shift a little bit. 22% of the country is covered in snow as of today. And there's the snow cover, in case you're curious. There is still a hang on there north of Des Moines, but that's going to rapidly begin to melt. If we look at the EPS starting Monday of this week, a couple days ago, the anomalies, snowfall rate anomalies, are really pretty low through this area. In other words, we expect to see more snow rates in these areas than we are going to see for this period. It starts on Monday and ends on the Sunday coming up here. And if we look at the weather service, we have a 3 to 7 day outlook. Still very high winds, downslope winds with a powerful jet stream. And anytime there's a ridge of high pressure developing like this, the winds coming down like this are wicked. They can exceed 100 miles per hour and did so. I believe I saw a report in Wyoming of 100+ mile per hour wind that broke a record. I don't remember what that was. I was going to verify it because it seemed a little high, but it may be right. But it's not uncommon to see 90, 100 mile per hour winds sometimes in the passes when these winds develop. Meanwhile, the heavy snow at the higher elevations and the heavy rain possibilities in California, all part of a pattern that I'll show you here in a minute under pattern change that supports a wetter west and slightly cooler and a very toasty and balmy mid and almost all of the eastern section of the country as well. Here's the snowfall risk. This is the after Christmas, the Friday after Christmas through the first of the year. And we have high risks of heavy snow in all the mountain areas. And we even have some slight risks in some of the lower areas. Again, there's just kind of evidence that a trough of low pressure is going to develop here. And that will cool the overall temperatures and maybe create some heavy snow risk at lower elevations than you typically see out west. Let's talk about that pattern shift. Well, all right, there's a couple of ways you can talk about this. So I use this a lot. This is the European anomaly. So this is the 500 millibar. It's a good litmus test for what's generally going on. When you see these colors here, that means there's ridging north, and that usually means warming. When there's a dipping down like this, and this is as the week has averaged out, and this goes from the 15th through this Sunday, you can kind of see this ridge is taking over, but the anomaly is starting to really show up in California. And troughing, not so much. I mean, there is a slight broad, kind of long way trough out here. Remember the map I showed you earlier? It's right here. But that kind of diminishes as this ridge, you can see the orange colors really start to build in. And there's always a correlation between this and temperature. So you're seeing everything basically west of the Mississippi River in an above normal anomaly. Again, this is not a specific day-to-day forecast. This is an average over an entire week. And so far it's working out, and it is really going to, this pattern has just begun to develop, and it'll spend next week shifting east. If we take a look at that now, this is a different long-range model. This is our version, the American version of the ensemble, the 500 millibar mean, and this is looping for about the next 7 days through Christmas. And you can see here that this huge ridge is developing right here through this period. And I'll let this loop again so you can see it. But here is that current trough. Remember we showed you at the beginning of the little show here. We have a little bit of cold air trying to work in behind this short wave, but this big ridge is developing right here. And notice toward the end, toward Christmas, I spelled Christmas wrong, but there's troughing out west here. And so that's what's leading me to believe there might be a white Christmas, maybe at Christmas or a little bit after in the southwest. And what's interesting about this, I'll let this loop through the very end again so you can see how we end here. Usually when you see a trough of low pressure out west, that usually sends a flag out for the Great Plains if it were springtime for severe weather. I think moisture return might be a problem, but I'm looking at the NIU Supercell Composite Index for the 25th through the 31st to take out the year. And these aren't incredibly high probabilities, but for the last several weeks, these have not shown up at all. So, yeah, I mean, there is some possibility at the weekend, I think after Christmas, there could be enough return moisture flow to support some severe weather from Texas up into Oklahoma, maybe into Missouri and Arkansas as well. It's way far out. The overall trend is there, but a lot of details have to fall into place before anything like that actually becomes a reality. So I think you're going to know what's going on here. These temperature departures, I'm going to zoom in on a couple of things too. So this is Friday. Again, east of the Mississippi, all the yellow warm-looking colors are above normal temperatures. Denver will get to 71 on Friday. Dallas will get to 62. Out ahead of the storm, it's going to be warm. Up in upstate Maine, it's going to be in the 50s. And again, remember that the actual highs are here. How much above normal they are is red. So when you see a red color, that doesn't mean there's like 70s and 80s in Maine. That just means that for those guys, a high of 53 degrees is really, really above normal and pretty high. That's Friday. As we go into the last shopping weekend before Christmas, again, remember I told you a little bit of a cold air invasion there with sub-freezing temperatures, again, where you see the greens mostly, but much of the country is above normal, and then the blowtorch turns on. Here's Tuesday. We're looking at highs in the 70s in Oklahoma, Texas, maybe even 80s a few places in Texas. Cold air virtually gone except for a small patch of the northern plains and the departing low pressure system in the northeast, and that's it. It's a blowtorch, and like I said before, it's a brown Christmas is what they refer to this as, not a Charlie Brown Christmas. But anyway, take a look at the details here. This is the GEFS, so this is an ensemble of what the temperatures are looking like on Christmas Eve. Wichita Falls will be 78 degrees, and it'll be a couple of 80s in Texas. Where I live here is 68 degrees in Springfield, Missouri. On Christmas Day, 70, and I'm looking forward to short sleeves on Christmas Day here. Again, well into the 70s. Many of these are going to threaten or break record high temperatures for these dates instantly. And then on Friday, the day after Christmas, just as warm, 70s virtually covering Missouri and Arkansas. And again, a patch of 80s, probably the warmest air so far showing up on the Friday after Christmas, return day, right? And 6 to 10 day temperature outlook sums it up very nicely. And if we extend this out to the 8 to 14 day outlook, again, we're looking at a very warm bubble. Only maybe New England on average might see enough cold air fall behind. And would that support us accumulating snow in that area? I don't know. It might happen after Christmas. We'd have to wait and see. One more thing we'll take a look at. That's the heavy rain. So this is the Weather Prediction Center's total precipitation. And again, I say that because this is not all rainfall. Some of this will be snow. What they do is they take the snow, melt it down as if there were a rain bucket there, and then spit out the answers. That's what you're seeing here. So a lot of this on the East Coast is snow, and a lot of this in the West is snow, but not all of it. If we zoom in on here for the next 5 days, again, snow totals will be pretty high through these areas here. But notice you're looking at 1 to 2 inch rainfalls in the lower valley areas near sea level through much of Oregon and Washington. Now, when the flow is coming ashore, like I showed you with that jet stream pattern, basically these mountains serve to block what's going on, basically. So that's why you see a tenth of an inch of rain in central parts of Washington state, whereas you see it's snowing like the dickens in the Cascades, and you see 2 inch rains, even more, through Seattle and those areas. And just to kind of put a point on all this, this is the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. This begins on Christmas Eve and goes through Sunday. So you can kind of see that this isn't just confined to the high mountainous areas, but there's a high probability of above normal rainfall that'll set in at all elevations in California, Nevada, almost in the Four Corners area by that 6 to 10 day period beginning on Christmas Eve. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.